I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christina Barton. You're watching Black T News. Hello. Welcome to Black T News. I'm your host, Christina Barnes. Today, we're going to be talking about the DNC and their headliners last night, which were the Obamas. And some people are really going in and making fun of a particular thing that Michelle said. But there's more that I need to talk about. And so the way that they project is just insane. How they'll talk trash about Republicans are changing the rules. They're the threat to democracy. They're the ones who are going to change and use the authoritative power of the government to crush their enemies and take your liberties. And that's all the things they're doing. And Michelle said something about, we can't just fail upwards. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? So there's some more background that you may not know about Kamala that I'm going to run through. In case you didn't know, and there's more thorough stuff that you can go look up, and maybe I'll have to cover myself, but these people know that she has failed upwards and done some unseemly things to get to where she is, but it's sexist to talk about all the things that she did to get ahead. But Donald Trump just fails upwards. Okay. These people are sick. She also talked about, my parents didn't trust people who had more than enough. I'm like, don't you got 3 houses? Don't you got 3 houses? So these folks drive me up a wall. Like when I was listening to some of the stuff in my car, and I just was like grunting, like in frustration, just from the boldness of the lies. So you guys have to share in my feelings as I talk about this stuff. Also, Donald Trump got a massive own on the media the other day because he came to Michigan for an event for like law enforcement, and they're like, this city has a history of white supremacy, and why'd you come here? So if you haven't seen the clip, I'll show you the clip. And he also had an interview with Theo, who's a comedian, and he has a podcast, and the podcast they aired it the same time, I guess. Well, they posted 20 hours ago, so I guess that would have been around the time of the convention, and and it was trending on Twitter, different parts and segments of it. And God forbid there's an interview that humanizes the man, but it's at like 4.7 million views right now. So doing very well. Doing very well. I wonder how many other more podcasts he'll be willing to go on. So the river dried eyed absolutely grieved my spirit. I'm not sure what that comment means. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles on my website. I did drop an article that I had been working on for a while that I finally dropped. I wanted to wait till I got my update of my book out. And so, by the way, the second edition of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion is available on Amazon. I did not post it on Barnes & Noble yet because that was just kind of a more difficult process. And because I don't know, the formatting is just like a little bit different for some reason. So ignore the Barnes and Noble part on this ad right there, but it is on Amazon right now. So the paperback and the ebook are both available, so you guys can get that. So if you've already gotten it, there's more stuff in it if you want to get the new version. But if you haven't gotten it before, it covers let me just, I guess, explain the background a little bit of why I made this book. Um, oh, so I'm sorry, I was reading the comments again. They explain it like Chicago rivers. That's what they're talking about in the comment. If you're watching on YouTube, anyway, if you're watching on Facebook, you can't see the comment. But anyway, this particular book, of course, God is blatant against abortion. I would debate this issue a lot, talk about it online. And every time I talked about it, even though if I wouldn't mention religion or anything, people would still bring up religion, and people would say things like, "Oh, well, God killed his kid. Why can't we kill our kids?" And they'd say like stuff like that. They'd say, "Well, the Bible teaches you how to do an abortion in Numbers 5." I'm like, "No, that's not an abortion. And even if it were, you don't take your husband doesn't take you to a Levitical priest so they could judge if you cheated on him or not. That's not an abortion." And they would say, "Well, life starts at first breath, so abortion must be okay." Babies breathe in the womb. Don't you know that? If I were pregnant, I take in air, the oxygen goes in, the lungs filter it to my blood would reach my baby, through the placenta and umbilical cord, and give the baby from the blood the oxygen and nutrients that it needs. Don't you know that they breathe? They don't breathe like we do. They're growing and they're developing, and even when they're very young and their lungs aren't ready to go to the outside world, that they swallow amniotic fluid, and that's how they partly strengthen their lungs as they're in the womb to get ready for that first big gasp of air. And so when people say that, I'm like, do you not even understand the embryology at all? Like, what kind of point is this trying to make? And if you think you literally have to be outside and to be considered alive, that's really scientifically inaccurate, and that would just justify abortion out to the moment of birth, beyond the moment of birth. Because what if you come out and the baby's not breathing because it's like premature and it needs like help or something? So it's just really so many crazy things. And then people will say things like, "Well, it seems like you believe that all life is valuable. Is that a is that a religious opinion? Does that stem from religion?" I'm like, okay, if you can't believe that all life is valuable, like inherently, if you're not religious, then that's a good reason to find Jesus. Congratulations, you've pitched Jesus. So even if you didn't mention it, it became important to me. I'm like, okay, all this crazy stuff that people are saying, they need to be addressed. It needs to be talked about. So at first it started out as like just a lot of TikTok videos. And then I started writing articles, and I got annoyed just kind of saying the same thing over and over and over again. So I just kept compiling my thoughts, and eventually I'm like, I got to write this book. And then through different, I guess, struggles with fighting to defeat Prop 3, which we didn't defeat it in Michigan, and just different conversations I had with people, it became very clear that within the body of Christ, we need to have this conversation. Outside the body of Christ, we need to have this conversation and to really talk about, yes, God is blatantly against abortion. Absolutely. So people would take scriptures and twist them to try to say that it was pro-abortion and other stuff. So anyway, I found that it was important to make, and I don't want Christians to have to just hide from their faith as they have this discussion. I want them to be able to say, okay, what is it about my belief system, my value system related to abortion that you disagree with? And let's go from there. You don't have to say, well, I just want to talk about the science. I just want to talk about the science. Because what do they care about the science when they're up here saying it's a clump of cells? What do they care about the science? They're trying to pretend like they don't have a heartbeat. Stacey Abrams is like, that noise is generated by men who want to control you. Are the men in the room with us now? Or are they in the machine? What are you talking about? So people, they don't care about the science. They just care about what they want. So at the end of the day, it's an ethics conversation anyway. It's a morality question anyway. So you better know where you're rooted in. And so it talks about the Bible, I added some church history stuff in there. Um, it talks about even um, the idea to even have an abortion should be antithetical to the values that you would get out of the gospel. And just even if you personally don't support it, and you want to still support other people's choice, it explains why that doesn't make any sense. And it talks through philosophy. Philosophy is not my favorite thing when people talk about this issue, because some people get really deep in the weeds with the stuff, but I cover that. I talk about personhood. I talk about difficult cases like illness of a mother, illness of a child, rape and incest, and what the church should do, and all kinds of different stuff. So it's very elaborate. It's about I don't know, the content of the whole book is probably like 370 pages, and then there's like the notes, like the citations and stuff. So um I recommend that you guys check it out. It is about 30 pages more than the last book, but I did take out the bibliography, which was just basically the endnotes in alphabetical order. So it's still like the same length, but it has more content in it. So second edition is out, and the cover is basically the same that is the original cover. I just added second edition like under the cover, but that's just the old photo of it. So go ahead and check it out. It's on Amazon. You can easily find it if you go to blacktnews.com. I did change the links there on the front web page. So going through like changing different links, but I'm excited. I'll send out an email about it when I get done talking to you guys. So yeah, I'm glad about that. So anyway, I made a new article that I posted today on the subject of the violinist argument. So if you're unfamiliar with the violinist argument is you wake up in the hospital, you've been kidnapped by the Music Lovers Society because the world's most famous violinist was dying. And so they kidnapped you, and now you're connected to them. You're the only biological match, and they need access to your kidney or something. You're filtering their blood or something. And so they'll be fine in 9 months. So Judith Jarvis Thompson, she's the one who like made the scenario up, and it's very famous. It's like the most famous essay there is, like most downloaded essay there is, I guess. The essay is called "The In Defense of Abortion." It's not called "The Violinist," but that's the main scenario that's taken out of it. And so she argues that it'd be very nice to save this person and be like a good Samaritan, but you shouldn't be forced to like stay and do that. So I go through in the article a lot of common um, pushbacks of that, but I make the point, most people automatically say this is not analogous to pregnancy for a lot of different reasons. One, this is a stranger versus your child, and you caused your child to be dependent upon you because they wouldn't even exist unless you did some actions that caused them to exist. It's not like a forced donation because it's already happened. It's inherent to the child-parent relationship. The child comes into the world with access to your stuff. You don't, consent doesn't really play into it because you can't consent to a biological function. So it's not like, oh yes, you may have permission. It's just something that biologically happens. You cannot like it, but that's just how our species reproduce. It's not a special right for the child, FYI, because everyone's come through the world through this way. So abortion is a special right to kill. So there's all kinds of ways that you can talk about how it's different, not analogous. But the issue with the that I don't think a lot of people push back and addressed is that the violinist argument, the purpose is not to be totally analogous to abortion. It's to prove a point that no one's right to life is contingent upon having access to someone else's body. So my pushback on that concept is that's totally, you know, separated from reality. That's just not the truth. And so I change up the scenario, like ask it different questions. Like instead of like the violinist situation, let's say you wake up and you've been it's 2008. Obama just won the presidency. You wake up in the hospital. The DNC has kidnapped you because he got into a car accident on his way home from winning the presidency. And now they need you to be connected to Barack Obama, at least until the inauguration. He should be fine by then. Now, would you be connected to him? Because if you unconnect, the first Black president is going to die. Okay? Now you could say, well, I didn't vote for him, so but my point in bringing that up in the essay is, do you really think if you were in that kind of situation that you would just be allowed to unplug? Do you think all these people who say my body, my choice in the case of abortion would be like, oh yeah, totally unplug, let the first black president die? I don't think that's a thing that people would allow you to happen. I think what most likely would happen is someone would knock on my parents' door and say, we're very sorry, your daughter died and there's no body. I think that's what's most likely would happen. Not the doctors and everybody to say, oh yeah, totally, you can unplug, you know. I just don't think that would be the thing that happened. Or you could ask a scenario like, what if two people got into an accident and some, I don't know, worker on site disconnected you both, and so neither of you consented to it, and but one of you is dependent on the other, and you can unplug and gain your bodily autonomy back. But this innocent person, and is no fault of either of you, they're connected to you. If you were the person who is connected and is going to die, would you feel like, oh yeah, go ahead, I totally understand, unplug me? And what would the doctors do? What would the law allow? I'm not sure that they would just allow you to unplug, right? And I also bring up the pandemic because they coerced you into getting a jab, because in altering your body, so your bodily autonomy meant squat diddly crap during that time. Even though, is it your fault that other people weren't, I don't know, viable in a post-COVID world? You might kill someone's grandma. You might kill this person. You might kill that person. So you have to alter your body because there's a chance that you might make them sick. And so we canceled school, we canceled churches, people couldn't go to the gym. They filled skate parks with sand. They locked playgrounds. They fined people for going to church and that were listening to church on the radio in the car parking lot, and still went around and just was giving people tickets. Some schools wouldn't let you attend online school unless you got a jab. And then there was Biden's unconstitutional OSHA mandates that the Supreme Court shot down. But if you were a healthcare worker, that wasn't shut down. They didn't shut that down for them. And a lot of people got pushed out of the army. So if they didn't get the jab. So we don't we don't do this in the real world. And also, I brought up a case about child neglect. There was a woman who left her 16-month-old, if I'm not mistaken, her name was Jalen, alone for 10 days. She went to Detroit, and then she went to, was it Puerto Rico, I think? Left her baby alone for 10 days, baby died. And they charged this mother. And I haven't talked to anyone who thinks that this is wrong to have charged his mother, but she didn't deliberate. Now, this was evil, don't get me wrong, but what she did was evil. I do think she should be charged. But I think there's an inconsistency here with the if you hold this view of Judith Jarvis Thompson. This woman didn't deliberately suffocate her daughter like you would an abortion. She didn't do anything to immediately kill the child like you would an abortion. She actually refused care. Sometimes people define abortion, especially in the first trimester, as just refusing care. That's not what it is. It's a deliberate killing. This mother, it would eventually and did result in her child's death, but she refused care. And people want to punish her because she didn't use her body to take care of her child. So in a situation like this, the whole entire argument that Judith Jarvis Thompson made really doesn't hold up. And so I break it down a lot more than that. It's about 10 pages. It's a pretty, when it's on the web page though, it doesn't seem like it's 10 pages or whatever, but I just know it is because, you know, I wrote it on Word first. So it's pretty long. It's worth the read. I recommend that you check it out. Those are kind of the highlights of it. But I recommend that you read it and share it. And because a lot of people do bring up the violinist argument and debunk it in all kinds of ways. But again, I don't think the way that people usually debunk it is true to what people are even talking about. And it's funny, this whole conversation kind of came up. I mean, people would talk about the violinist argument all the time, but why I kind of became kind of so focused on it was because um I was watching, I think of, I don't know, some video, pro-life videos or whatever. I think maybe about Trent Horn doing it in a video with an interview with someone, and they're talking about the that scenario or whatever. So anyway, I brought it up to my youngest sister, and she was kind of familiar with it. So then I started going in detail and explaining the violinist argument. And so she's like, "Oh, does is a violinist, how long is it?" Like, and I'm like, "Okay, like 9 months." She's like, "Okay." And I'm like, she seemed like interested, like she would be willing to do it. And she's like, "It's the world's most famous violinist." I'm like, "Yeah, it's the world's most famous violinist." And in my mind, I'm like thinking she's thinking about compensation, like this person can pay her, make all her wildest dreams come true, like financially, if she keeps them alive. That's what I'm thinking. And then I started pressing her, and she's like, "Well, I I have this really pretty melody in my head, and I'd really like for a violinist to play it at my wedding." So I'm like, "Wait, so you would do it?" Which is funny, because so she's willing to do it for for potential future experiences, which is why we really should be having abortions, because of potential future conscious experiences, right? Because of how people can experience life, the potential of life because life is inherently valuable on top of people being inherently valuable. So but anyway, she's like, "Yeah, I would," she's like, "I would do it, yeah." Just thinking about like, what if this person could play at my wedding? So I didn't I know she likes classical music and all that kind of stuff, and she listens to a lot of instrumentals and orchestra stuff. I just didn't know that she liked the violin that much. And I had never had a conversation with anyone about the violinist scenario where they were like, "Oh yeah, violinist? Absolutely." I've just never had a conversation with someone who liked it that much. So from that point in time, I was like, okay. And Lindsay Sterling started popping up in my TikTok feed. And Lindsay Sterling is one of the most famous violinists in the world, I guess. She was on America's Got Talent once, and she would like dance and play at the same time. And they're like, "Oh, you need more training or whatever, and you're doing too much as you're moving around, and you're never gonna fill a stadium." So she did not win that season, but years later, she's filling up stadiums, and she kept working at it, and etc. So she started popping up in my algorithm, and I found out because she was going on tour and she was going to be in Michigan. So I surprised my sister with tickets on her birthday. And so her birthday was June 24th, but the actual date was yesterday. So that's why yesterday at the end of the show, I was like, I gotta go because I had to make the show, and the traffic was really, really bad. It was a good thing there was like opening acts, because we would have missed a lot of show if it was on time at the time the ticket said. So um yeah, so it was a really great experience. I wish I had some stuff uploaded right now that I could kind of share with you guys, but it was she dances and she sing, well, she doesn't really sing, she like sang a little bit, but kind of like ahs or whatever, but she's mostly dancing while she plays her violin, and she has background dancers, and she also does like Cirque du Soleil kind of stuff. Like she was on these hoops playing the violin. At one point she was on these like silk sheets um that they climb up on top of, and so she like was upside down, like full legs wide open, spread eagle, playing the violin, and there's like fire and fans and all kinds of stuff. So it was really neat, very visually beautiful at points and stimulating at points. And I was so thankful that there was nothing woke. It was very inspirational. It was very because her story is inspirational. They told her that, hey, you can't do this thing. Now she's living her dream. And so she's like, when people say you're not good enough or whatever, just know it's just a not yet. Like you can get better. You can just like work on different stuff, and don't let people in the world like discourage you, and don't let all this anxiety like build a cage around your life. And they had different narrations for different stuff that was just really cool. Even in one piece, they brought up this, gosh, I don't remember what it's called, but there's this Japanese pottery thing where if when something shatters, they remake it with gold, and so it becomes like a new beautiful creation, but you can't do it unless you're shattered, and then you become like this new piece of art. So it was cool because one time my sister preached a sermon using that metaphor. So it was just really, really in her zone. So I was very glad that she thought it was really cool, thought it was really awesome. And and it was a cool experience. And I was so grateful. I was so grateful because I kept telling my sister, like, I hope there's no politics, hope there's no woke stuff. I hope there's no we're doing this for the gays, or like it was nothing like that. And part of her proceeds go to paying off people's medical bills. So that was neat. And so I was like, I was in my seat like, what did I help pay for? Like, she's like, oh, it's going to charity. I'm like, what kind of charity? What kind of charity? She's like, medical bills. And I'm like, that's very admirable. My sister's like, man, you were loud when you said that. I'm like, that is admirable. Can you imagine if all these people who keep talking about medical bills, these politicians, like, we're going to do this for healthcare, we're going to do this for healthcare. Imagine if they just raise money to pay people's medical bills. Think about the hundreds of millions of dollars that go to campaigns and go to contractors. Imagine, or not even politics. Imagine how much money goes to things like only stands. Okay. That's not what it's called, but I didn't want to say the full thing. Or other sorts of popcorn websites, if you catch my drift. So much money goes to that stuff. What if we just collectively decided to just care and take care of each other, community and all that stuff? But everyone just want the government to do it so they can confiscate money from other people, not you. Yeah, that was admirable. It's a worthy kind of cause. And she said that they had paid off like $15 million worth of people's medical bills. So it was really nice. It was very positive, and it was not divisive at all, and it was just nice. Nothing, there was like nothing controversial said or happened between her, or even the I didn't see all of the act before her. Walk Off the Earth was a group. Nothing was said that was like political at all. So it was a nice night off, I guess. In contrast, because I'm there enjoying all this positivity, and at the DNC, they're like, Trump is evil, Trump, white supremacist, and Trump's gonna destroy democracy. So I didn't watch a lot of the DNC, saw very few of it, to be frank with you, but I want to talk about some moments. So that's my very long intro explanation of what's going on with my life. And um but it was fun, and it is very important I think for entertainers to just remember that people need an escape from all the craziness, from all the politics, from all the division. And we want music and we want art and all these things to bring us together to find some kind of common ground. And people want to ruin that every chance you can get. That's why people are so mad about, Disney and other stuff that you watch, where it's just so political and toxic, and the story suffers. That's why one reason why Maverick did so well, at the box office, is because it was just, you know, good old fashioned popcorn, feel good Americana. We're gonna blow up some stuff and win the day, you know. And I didn't see the movie at first, and then I eventually went to go see it because I saw so many people talking about how good of a movie it was, and people were like, Twister's really good. Twister, like, there's nothing like in it this woke or whatever. And so uh, it's just nice when art is just art and you can find that common ground, but too many people want to destroy everything that we can find common ground. And perhaps that's part of a grand sort of I don't know, movement to destroy our country by not having any sort of way that we can bond. I mean, they tried to tear us apart over the national anthem and then the flag. The reason the reason why, like, the national anthem became like the national anthem is because we needed some kind of um you know identity after the Civil War. And people just kind of started rallying around the flag, and people were singing about the flag, and, at different events and pubs, and eventually sports events, and eventually it just became our national anthem. But people try to say that the flag is bad. People try to say that, the national anthem is bad because there's a stanza that we don't even freaking sing that mentions something about slaves. And then they try to say, well, Juneteenth is our new holiday. We're gonna sing Lift Every Voice. And I love Lift Every Voice, but it's not gonna replace the Star Spangled Banner for me. It's not going to. And it's okay to like both, you know? I think Lift Every Voice is a prettier song, to be frank. And an easier, I think they're both kind of like an unusual kind of song to sing, but Lift Every Voice is an easier song to sing, but you don't sing that for every occasion. So I just, all this division is just really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And a lot of people were trying to complain about the division are the ones who keep dividing. So now we shall move on to Miss Obama here. So, where to start though? I'm going to start with the obvious. Wait, hold on. Before I show Michelle, because this will take 1 second. Donald Trump was in Michigan, and some people were concerned about him going to Howell because there's some history of some racism there, white supremacy. But Donald Trump was asked this question by a reporter, like, "Oh, what do you say? What about people saying that you went to Howell on this location and its ties to white supremacy and so on?" So Donald Trump had an amazing response. That just really goes to show you how dumb and hypocritical the media is.
Thank you, everybody, very much. Who was here in 2021? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Mic drop. Mic drop. Just a great moment. Like, you white supremacy. Why are you here, man? Joe Biden was here. You people don't ask them these kinds of questions. You just want to ask me these types of questions. Like, it's a city in the United States of America. I came here for a police event, and and it was a small event. Like, it was not like a big rally where lots of folks go. It was very, I knew about it in advance. I didn't get an invite, but I didn't ask for one either. But I did know about it in advance. But these people are just tripping. So I like that Donald Trump just on his feet like that. Like, who was here before? Oh, Joe Biden. Okay. All right. So done. Because Joe Biden showing up there, does that make him a white supremacist? No, it doesn't. So he's just supposed to ignore American cities now. I'm sorry, it's the United States of America. There's racism in the history. You're just not going to be able to escape it. So perfect. Sometimes he can do things and it's like, oh dear God, but sometimes he's just chef's kiss, and that was a great moment for him. Now I want to move on to Michelle. Now, a lot of people are talking about this snippet from her speech the other night when she brought up her parents. Mind you, Michelle was once asked if she could be anyone in the world. I think she said Beyonce. You could be anybody important. You pick Beyonce. But anyway, she talked about her parents and people who have too much, and what her parents thought about people who have too much.
You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed.
Hold on, I gotta say something before we move on. I gotta say something because these, oh my gosh, I'm censoring words. I don't swear, but there's other words I want to say, but I'm gonna say this as nice as possible. But they got a darn death bus. outside the DNC. Apparently, they at least killed 25 babies. So, what is she out here doing talking about my mama says all children got value? What do you mean? You killing them. You're all of them has value, but you're murdering children outside your convention. You could at least say, hey, let's tuck that away. It's kind of cliche. It's kind of our dirty secret that we support. We don't want to be like, oh yeah, bring the bus. This is crazy. There's no way I would have wanted, if I was in Democrat leadership, that I would want that bus anywhere near the convention. And she's in here talking about my mama that says all children have value. Then why are you killing them by the millions? Why do you support that? Her husband, and I mentioned this at the very beginning of my book. I mentioned this at the very beginning of the book. When her husband Barack Obama was running for president, which by the way, apparently that was the first time she was ever proud of her country, when she saw people supporting her husband. So that's red flags, red flags, red flags. Obama was asked a question, and most people remember the question like, when does life begin? And he said, it's above my pay grade. But that's not what Obama was asked. He was asked, when do we get human rights or human value or something like that? I think it was human rights. And he said it's above my pay grade. Now, it's interesting because he definitely had opinions about abortion. So I don't think it was really above your pay grade. You just wanted to wiggle out of answering that. Everyone's got some kind of opinion on this stuff. Even a lot of people who say, well, I don't know. Once you push them a little bit, they got an opinion somewhere. Okay. But Obama, someone who's pushed and advocated and signed his name to legislation or executive orders involving abortion, absolutely 100% knows when he has an opinion about when humans should get some kind of status or value. But apparently it's not in the womb. Apparently it's not in the womb. The Obama administration was against limiting abortions for sex selective abortions. I think Jake Tapper was ABC at the time, and he asked that question because there was the Republicans were trying to at least ban sex selective abortions, which, by the way, people do have them because Warren Hearn admitting to doing two. He's an abortion doctor from Colorado, and so that was defeated. And so they asked the White House, and the White House was like, not that we like it, but we just don't want to restrict a woman in any kind of way, basically. So, Obama's always been radical on this stuff. When he was in Chicago and there was a bill to like mandate babies medical care for babies that survive abortion, he didn't support it. And the reason why he didn't support it, or because he voiced like concern about it, he didn't want to hinder the original intention of the mother. So, we can't provide medical care for babies that would survive abortions because we don't want to remind women that they're killing them, because that could make them change their mind about doing that. And why would we want to do that? Maybe because of what Michelle Obama's mama used to say about children having all value, I don't know. So these are gross people. But I had to interject there. Let's keep watching.
Have given the opportunity.
Given all the
She
opportunity.
and my father
gosh.
didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school.
Okay. She's suspicious about people who have a lot while other people are drowning. Okay. There's a lot of people drowning right now in 2024. So some people have too much while other folks are drowning. Now, this is the issue with these folks. Like, there's nothing wrong with wealth. There's nothing people with having access, I think. But I do think that out of people's kindness of their own hearts, we should give. We should give a lot for people who have much to give. Even people who don't have much to give, you should still give where you can. You should. And but I don't fault people for being rich, but they enjoy wealth themselves while they trash people who earn wealth. People who are who get wealth and fame through politics and stuff, they're cool. But Trump is bad because he came down a golden escalator that he paid for with his own money. Like that's bad. JD Vance is bad because, you know, he went to Yale. He used to be trailer, you know, park, whatever. But then he went to Yale. Oh my gosh, he went to Yale. Yeah, he should have just stayed trailer trash. Like that's what's. I mentioned the other day online. I think maybe when I was live. It's so strange that they keep trashing JD Vance for going to a good school, but maybe it's not so strange. It's just, you know, they resent people finding success because they want people to remain not successful. they want them to be on some kind of government teat. Okay. So when they don't become some kind of public servant who enriches themselves, you know, and keeps, you know, propping up the Democrat Party, being loyal to the party. If you come in and from nothing and go to Yale, you're bad. Or Donald Trump, he didn't come from nothing, but he definitely didn't come from nothing, but he built up, you know, successful empire. You know, like he has 6 bankruptcies. Okay, out of how many businesses, man? Out of how many subsidiaries? Like, you're not gonna convince people with towers that say Trump everywhere that he's just not good. I'm not saying he's the best, but he's like, you know, you're just not gonna convince people of that. You sound silly, but people really think Michelle sounds silly because like, these are your homes, ma'am. Like, why you need 3? People can't get a house now. People can't even afford their rent right now. And you up here, my parents didn't trust people who had more than enough. Who lived in excess. They took in more than they needed. Did you need all that money from Netflix? Did you need all that space on Martha's Vineyard? Do you need those luxurious vacations, some of which you went on while you were first lady? Is that not living in excess? Taking in more than you need? Because Donald Trump didn't take a paycheck when he was president. What did your husband do? What did your husband do? I think Trump had to take $1 or something, and he donated the rest of his salary. Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't be paid for their work, even if they're a public servant and president or whatever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying these people are full of crap. They're full of crap. Bernie Sanders, the socialist, with his multiple houses. They're going on somewhere. This is crazy. They just have some kind of nerve, but it's worse. Like that's what people are really talking about. And there's more, man. there's more. So I really want to talk about what she talked about in regards to Kamala and Obama. I'm not gonna play any clips of Obama, but he's like, yes, she can, yes, she can, yes, she can. And they're trying to prop her up like she's, I don't know, like she's the next him. And it's just not the case. Obama even wasn't all that they prop up the legend for Obama is what all that they claim that he was and whatever. But Kamala sure ain't that. She's not even like a talented speaker or anything. And I don't understand people who want her to be president knowing that she's been dodging the press for all this time. You really want to be surprised about what kind of president she's going to be? Or do you just expect her to just dodge like interviews and never talk to anyone when she becomes president? It just seems like an important part of the job. But if you vote for her, you get what you deserve. You get what you deserve. I will have to suffer all with you guys. But here's some comments she made about Kamala.
Most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward.
I'm sorry, this is in favor of Kamala versus like trying to build a contrast with Donald Trump. So let me run it back a little bit.
Most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth.
That's not affirmative action.
If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. We don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No.
I don't know what I don't remember what she's gonna say at the end of here, but let me just interject before I lose some of my thoughts. Okay. Failing upwards. I'll address that in a second. I'm gonna read an article about Kamala Harris. That's having rich parents is not affirmative action. Affirmative action is picking winners and losers based on we saw one reason why it got taken down or whatever is because they saw that you have a more favorable chance of being able to go to different colleges, whatever, if you're African American, but it was hurting Asians because they're doing really well and they're basically competing against each other. And so it just made it really, really hard for them to get in at different elite places. So I'm not saying there weren't Asians that got in, but they're competing against each other in their pool. And so it is a racist policy. Like one time I was having a conversation with someone and she's just like, well, I know if it's my child, I'd want them to have an advantage. And I just kind of paused a little bit and I said, that's because your child would be Black. If your child wasn't Black, you might be upset about them not having this extra leg up or whatever. So having rich parents or whatever, someone who can help you out is not affirmative action. And by the way, it's not like Kamala Harris came from nothing. Okay. So we'll get to that. We can't just change the rules. Why is Kamala being nominated tonight, guys? Joe Biden was your nominee. Joe Biden was a person that people voted for. And y'all didn't want him to be the person on November the 5th, because you were afraid that you're going to lose the House, that you're going to lose the Senate, and you're going to lose the presidency. So y'all made this man drop out. Allegedly, Obama was a part of it. Pelosi was was along with pushing him out. Schumer, all these folks, Democrat elites, pushing Joe Biden out. Allegedly, they threatened him with the 25th Amendment. I wonder if, and this is just, I was just thinking about this the other day, because Joe Biden, if they did invoke the 25th, his son is also got all this like kind of shady business deal, criminal stuff going on. So what if they're like, we're going to make sure we're going to do the 25th and you won't be able to pardon your son. Nobody's going to pardon your son. Your son's going to go to jail. How do you feel about that, old man? Like there's just a lot of reasons that they kind of pushed how they could have got him to say that final okay to hit send on that Twitter message or whatever when he announced that he was dropping out, because that old man was going to stay in there. He was really, really stubborn about it, but they got him out. And so they didn't want the American people to judge him versus Trump, because the people were going to pick Trump. And not only were the people going to pick Trump, it was going to affect the House and the Senate seats. And now these people won't even allow Kamala Harris or push or force her to do the responsible thing and sit down and have an interview, even though that they probably have like lovely kind of puff pieces with her and wouldn't ask her too many like hard questions. They don't want her to have to sit down and talk. So don't tell me that we don't expect the escalator to take us up to the top of the mountain. Shut up. You are a filthy liar. I can't. I never liked the Obamas. Some people are like, well, I didn't vote for them, but I still like them. Why? They're creeps. They're liars. They're scumbags. I'm sorry. So, and they're, oh, she's just so classy. These are lies. These are lies. It's propaganda. It's projection. They're, it's insane. It's insane. And the approach, like, we're full of joy, we're full of love, we got to stop the division on the other side. By the way, these people suck and they're awful. Like the Republican National Convention. Now, granted, it was right after Trump got shot, so they basically changed the tone of the entire convention. But it was like supposed to be more unifying and whatnot. And I think the amount of times that they mentioned Joe Biden, who was the nominee at the time, was far less than times they mentioned Trump. Somebody from Michigan, unfortunately, who's a Democrat, came out with a giant 2020 Project 2025 book. And they're like, we got to stop Trump's agenda. And he's going to prosecute his political opponents. I'm like, wow, imagine if someone did that. That'd be crazy. That'd be so crazy, guys. And that's not, they're Chuck Schumer, like, we got to stop Project 2025. And Michelle Obama, like, we got to stop him from stopping IVF. There are people mad at him because he changed the Republican platform, not just for abortion, but he also included IVF. And people don't, there's plenty of people, the numbers aren't there on the Republican side to even do anything with IVF because they're all on board, basically. But the reason why people find IVF controversial is because it creates and destroys embryos. And life starts when? At conception. So if you're freezing them, donating them to science, like freezing them indefinitely, or eventually like you let them just, I don't know, thaw out and die or whatever, or some people donate them for experiments or whatnot, let them just be tossed or thrown out, those are your children too. And a child is someone below the age of maturity, or a son or daughter of any age. You can take issue with that phrase, but they are your son or daughter. They are your progeny. They're your offspring, and they are alive and human and a whole living organism. So that's the issue with IVF. But Donald Trump doesn't have any interest of getting rid of it, and he's been a push to keep it. And then she gets on stage and lies about it, and they all get on stage and lie about it. That's not the only thing they've lied about. So no, I don't like these people. I don't like their lies. And I don't like that. I don't know. They think a lot of Americans are stupid, and unfortunately a lot are, but I'm not. And when you lie to me, to my face, especially about something so stupid while you're clearly projecting, you're being disrespectful. You're being disrespectful, and I don't appreciate it. Michelle. Well, let me see what else she says at the end here. Maybe
we put our heads down. We get to work. In America, we do something. And throughout her entire life, that's what we've seen from Kamala Harris.
Okay, so again, Kamala Harris, she's at the beginning of this clip, she said, what exactly? Let's go back.
Most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward.
Okay. Most of us will never afford the grace of failing forward. Most of us don't have to sleep around to get ahead, or are willing to do that, to sell our soul and our body for political favors. Okay. And I know it's like so taboo to mention the fact that this is what happened in her life, but it is what it is. And I just can't stand people pretending. I don't think Trump should touch this on the debate stage. Maybe there's a delicate way to do it. I don't know. It just feels like it deserves to be talked about. So this is an article from the Daily Wire that details some of her life, but they did do a series called Skamala that is on the Daily Wire. I don't think that you need to be a paid member to watch it. I don't even know if you need to be a member, because I did start watching, because I was a member, but I kind of let it run out. But so I'm not paid for it. I have a login or whatever, but I don't have excuse me, I'm not paying for it right now. So I was able to watch at least the first episode, and it was there's a lot of good information that's in there that more people need to know, and things that I knew about, but I didn't know quite all the details that they went into about her relationship with Willie Brown, and her just how many favors she got from that relationship. So um let's read a little bit about this. Well, I'm going to try to run through it. Following intense pressure from the mega donors and party elites, President, let me just jump to the background. Harris was born in 1964 to successful parents. Her mother, Shamala Gopalin Harris, was the daughter of an Indian diplomat and became a scientist and a cancer researcher. Her father, Donald J. Harris, was an economist who taught at Stanford University and was described by the Stanford Daily as a Marxist scholar. Interesting. There, her background, upbringing there. Harris's parents divorced when she was 7 years old, and she was largely raised by her mother, who was Hindu. Gopalin, who passed away in 2009, told the Los Angeles Times in 2004 that Harris was named after the Hindu goddess Lakshma. Kamala means lotus. Another name for Lakshma, a culture that worships goddesses, produces strong women, Gopalin boasted. Harris grew up in Berkeley until she was about 12 years old. By the way, you know, Harris's campaign is making it an issue, different stuff that Trump said about himself in regards to Christianity. He didn't say anything negative about Christianity, but he said that they played the clip of him saying, him being asked, have you ever asked for forgiveness? And he was like, and he just couldn't think of anything or name anything like he needed to ask or felt that he ever needed to ask. So that's a red flag about him personally and his spiritual journey. And they're putting that in ads for Harris for evangelicals. So if they're going to attack him personally in his walk with Christianity, maybe it's up for grabs to talk, because I haven't heard her talk about her personal relationship with Jesus Christ and that he's the only way to heaven, given the fact that she was raised up in a religion that has goddesses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very curious to hear her talk about that. So if they're gonna make campaign videos about Donald Trump, and he didn't say anything about religion itself, it was about his personal, I haven't really asked for forgiveness. I don't really, if they're going to use that in ads, I think it's fair that people press her about her faith and her background, which I think is pretty obvious that she hasn't bared fruits of the spirit. A tree by their fruits. So I think it's pretty obvious. But I think it'd be interesting to press her since they opened that can of worms themselves. Harris grew up in Berkeley until she was about 12 years old and then attended high school in Montreal, Canada. Notably, when Harris ran for her party's 2020 presidential nomination, she suggested Biden was a racist because of his past position on busing. Harris said she was one of the little girls who first integrated her segregated school. However, Harris was born after the Civil Rights Act was signed and California never had segregated schools. Her school in Berkeley was not legally segregated. Instead, some lawmakers argued that it was de facto segregated because the demographic makeup of the school based on where the students lived. And mind you, she had t-shirts after she basically called Biden a racist. After attending high school in Canada, Harris chose to go to Canada, by the way. I know there's Canadians that watch, God bless you all, but I just don't think people think of this being the usual kind of experience of, I don't know, whatever they thought Kamala was, but background, Marxist dad, scientist mom, goes to Canada in a, from my understanding, a wealthier kind of neighborhood or area. And much of her formative years was up in Canada as opposed to the United States of America. And then she chose to go to Howard University, where she says her political identity began to take shape. Ascension in politics in ascension in California politics. Harris took off in California politics with the help of a married man she dated back in 1994 named Willie Brown. Harris was then a 29-year-old prosecutor in the um, uh, Alameda County District Attorney's Office, while Brown was a 60-year-old Speaker of the California Assembly, known as the godfather of California politics. Brown was married at the time, but says he and his wife were estranged when he dated Harris. According to a Sacramento Bee reporter, Brown had a succession of girlfriends, and he would frequent parties with his wife on one arm and his girlfriend on the other. It's funny when fact checkers try to say stuff about Kamala and Willie Brown, they'll be like, well, they were together, but while he was married, but he was estranged. Now, according to Willie Brown, I don't know if they're going to mention on this, but they did mention it on their little documentary thing, that Willie Brown mentioned in his autobiography, and I don't think he named Kamala Harris's name, but his wife put her foot down as far as breaking up with her, because he wanted to, she wanted to make, people were saying that all Kamala was going to be like the mayor, the mayor's wife or whatever and stuff. And she didn't like, I guess it was going too far. So she put her foot down. So they can say they were estranged, but she knew her place. Like, you keep your so-and-sos in check. So that's what happened there. Still married, by the way, regardless of whatever happened. According also to the documentary, Kamala Harris doesn't mention Willie Brown in her, or I guess this kind of stuff. Maybe she doesn't mention them all in her autobiography. That'd be kind of odd. He played such a pivotal role. During the relationship, Brown appointed Harris to 2 well-paying board positions that her resume at the time probably would not qualify her for: the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and Medical Assistance Commission. Brown also boasted to the press that he helped Harris get elected as San Francisco District Attorney in 2004, and she got paid a lot of money for these commissions seats, a lot of money for these positions that she was not qualified to have, but she got them, on the rise to being involved in seeking higher office. So he's helping to build her up to get to the point of where she is. But this is what ticked me off, knowing this stuff. And Michelle Obama having the audacity to be like, we don't fail upwards. No, you just sleep upwards. And politicians absolutely fell upwards all the time. Who is the energy secretary right now in the Biden administration? Granholm. Is it Gretchen Granholm? Jennifer Granholm. I'm merging the two. Jennifer Granholm. When I was a kid, she was the governor of my state. Do you know what we call that time under her reign? The lost decade. The lost decade. The person who oversaw that is the head of our energy in America. Remember that the next time you pump gas and you don't like the price. Don't tell me you can't fail upwards. Don't tell me. Don't tell me that. During their relationship, I already read that. Okay. Amateur Hour author Charlie Spearing told the Daily Wire that the board positions were highly lucrative for Harris. At this point, she's relatively unknown in Alameda County prosecutor in California, but her relationship with Willie Brown really puts her on the stage. Spearing said, Brown takes her to all the donor parties, introduces her to the makers and shakers of San Francisco, and he also gives her a state position on a board that pays her a significant amount of money, around $400,000 over just a couple of years on these boards. Adjust for inflation, that's almost $1 million today. So don't talk to me about the golden escalator. I mean, Trump bought his escalator with his own money. Kamala did it with her panties. I'm sorry. We just gonna be real today. It really helped kickstart her career, he said, adding that Brown bought her BMW as well. This relationship is very lucrative for Harris, and it really sets her up to be in the perfect spot to ultimately run for public office herself with the support of Brown behind the scenes. Kamala Harris doesn't like to talk about Willie Brown sparing at it. She doesn't. She thinks it's very unfair to even mention it. She doesn't even mention her relationship with Willie Brown in her memoirs. And it's definitely a very important part of her story. Yeah. Her time as San Fran district attorney, after apparently using Brown's connections, Harris becomes San Francisco's 27th DA in 2004. There, she created an environmental crimes unit and a hate crimes unit that focused on LGBTQ plus children and teens in schools. She also officiated one of the city's first same-sex weddings, and she refused to seek the death penalty for a cop killer. They go into more details about these things on Skamala. One of her most controversial moves, however, came, and if it is free, I just want to interject. Daily Wire should just post it, because I don't think it's just up in the air. Like, I don't think it's on Twitter, and I don't think it's on YouTube. I couldn't find it on YouTube. I like went to Daily Wire to watch it, but they should absolutely put it on TikTok if it's not on TikTok, because I haven't seen it on TikTok. And I don't want to just repost their whole thing on TikTok. I think that they should do it. They can get their revenue from it. They have more followers than I do, so more people will see it. And I'm sure the algorithm likes them more than it likes me. But they should post it, because there's information that I think people should know. Okay. One of her most controversial moves, however, came when her office kept illegal immigrant criminals out of jail instead of lining them up for jobs. Instead lining them up for a jobs program called Back on Track, highlighted by the Free Beacon editor Peter Hasen. One of the illegals picked for the program evaded jail time for a felony drug charge and went on to steal a woman's purse and run her down in an SUV. The woman fractured her skull and said the perpetrator was laughing as she hit the front windshield. Wow. Harris then ran for attorney general in California in 2010. She narrowly beat out Republican for the spot, which is really sad in California, and served 2 terms. Her office famously wrote up the summary for Proposition 47, an extremely controversial law that lessens penalties for a host of crimes, including thefts under $950. Oh my gosh, they did that? Her office named the proposition the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act, which, as critics have said, is misleading. Prop 47 has since been tied to an expulsion in crimes. Harris also opened the investigation into pro-life journalists at the Center for Medical Progress and ordered a raid on the home of one of those journalists, David DeLayden. Their undercover videos show Planned Parenthood executives talking about selling aborted baby parts, which is illegal. Her office charged the group with violating state privacy laws when she left for the U.S. Senate. Like, oh, selling baby body parts, huh? Well, I guess we have to get you for an invasion of privacy. Like, that's the priority, ma'am. Harris also oversaw nearly 2,000 convictions for marijuana violations, which came under scrutiny during her 2020 campaign, since Harris famously laughed about smoking marijuana during an appearance on The Breakfast Club, an NYC-based radio show. It's funny to refer to The Breakfast Club as just a NYC-based radio show, as if it's not like some kind of mega phenomenon. Harris then, I would love to see Ben Shapiro go on The Breakfast Club, though. Harris then served in the U.S. as a U.S. Senator from 2017 to 2021. Notably, a nonpartisan transparency organization called GovTrack rated Harris as the most liberal senator, which means she was ranked as further left wing than Senator Bernie Sanders, who was an open socialist. As senator, she sponsored a bill for universal basic income for households making up to $100,000. She also moved to cap rents and utility payments. She co-sponsored legislation with Bernie Sanders for taxpayers to fund college tuition for households making up to $125,000, which would cost trillions of dollars. She also co-sponsored legislation for higher income taxes to pay for Medicare for all. On the border, Harris suggested ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs enforcement, needed to be abolished and replaced with something different. How much longer is this article? It's not terribly too much longer, but I just kind of wanted to go into the background. I mean, we've talked about her time as she ran in 2020. Banning fracking, they mentioned that the video there. Medicare for all, it's going to get rid of private insurance. Okay with that. Healthcare for illegal immigrants. Yep, she supported that. Mandatory gun buybacks, that too. And mass incarceration, eliminating cash bail, court ordered fines, um, uh, wanted to basically lessen crimes for people who cross the border illegally. And you guys should know that she's a trash VP, borders are and all that stuff. So anyway, good article from Daily Wire. I recommend that if you guys do have time to go ahead and watch Kamala and you know, share it around, I guess. I think that Daily Wire should do that themselves. And I know that they made it anticipating that she was going to maybe be the nominee instead of Biden. You know, I'm glad that they are more prepared to try to take her on than the Trump campaign apparently was, but do your part and spread the knowledge. She has some crazy economic policies that she's put out, and I guess it was Biden's, and then she endorsed about unrealized capital gains, and people are freaking out about how much they want to tax people, because some people are like, this would destroy me and my family and people's businesses, and it's not just stock market, your houses, private businesses. Okay, here Kamala's policy so far: price controls, we know about that, 28% corporate tax, 44.6% capital gains tax, and 25% tax on unrealized gains. That's crazy. That's crazy. And people don't want her to have to explain herself. Insane. Insane. So these Democrats, they're propping her up. We're trying to, while they trash Trump and talk about how he's divisive and is going to do all these things to America that they've already implemented or they're trying to implement. They're the ones who want to fundamentally change our country. They're the ones who are nominating socialists. We haven't even touched really all the stuff that Tim Walz, his praising of communist China. We haven't even touched that on the show yet. We will. Free Beacon discovered some interesting things that he said in the past. He's made a lot of trips to China, by the way. It's just a lot. If you vote for them, I promise you will get what you deserve. You will get what you deserve. But I can't. The Obamas are some of the fakest, most bitter people, and they talk about Trump and all these folks and their celebrity when they just wanted to be famous so bad, and they are. But the thing about, I played for you guys a video with Eminem, I think on Monday, or maybe it was Tuesday, but about how he didn't understand people who supported Trump, and he's like, he's rich, he can't relate to you. And it's like, well, people aspire to do better. They want to do better. But these people don't seem to respect it on the left. Like these people at the DNC and so on. It's fine if you make your career in politics, but for somebody like JD Vance, who came from this really dysfunctional situation, and it can somehow make it to Yale. I don't know any hillbillies who went to Yale. Okay, well, now you met one. Like, what's why are you ragging on his humble beginnings, or ragging on people who want to make more for themselves? There's some people saying, well, this unrealized capital gains tax is only going to affect people at a certain income. Well, explain to me why it's moral at all. And people who think that people are going to stop and just only tax the really, 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 really wealthy. First of all, the Mark Cubans of the world, they can figure out all kinds of ways around it. And, and they can miss a couple $1 million and be whatever. But, the truth is that they will always come and seek more from folks, especially communists. But the income tax didn't used to apply for everybody. I think at first originally it was only like 3% of the country that it affected. I'm not 100%, but it wasn't it wasn't like it was today. They always ask for more. Don't let the commies win. Don't let the commies win. So anyway, last thing I do want to mention, I guess I'm going to talk about it too long because we are already over, but Donald Trump had an interview with Theo Von. It's pretty interesting. I didn't watch the whole thing yet. I'm maybe about more than halfway. Beginning, they talked about a lot about fights and UFC and boxing and some of Trump's memories, seeing different stuff because they have a shared love for that. And then they talked a long time about drug addiction because Theo Von, he's a recovering addict, and Donald Trump, which I knew that because knew this piece of information, but he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he's never touched the stuff because of what happened with his brother Fred. And he was an addict, and his brother told him to stay away from that stuff, and he saw his brother struggle, so he wouldn't touch the stuff himself. He told his kids not to touch it. I think I don't know if it was. I know they didn't like totally listen to dad there, but he himself has never touched this stuff. And so they had interesting conversations about that. And they talked about the economy and Kamala Harris a bit, but I haven't even gotten to the section where they really hit politics a lot. And they've talked about lobbying and the drug companies. And so it's an interesting interview. And I think it's important for people to see like another side of Trump because everyone's just like attack. And they get so mad when there's an opportunity when they see him as human. Like do you guys remember back in 2016 when he came on Jimmy Fallon and it was right before the election pretty much. And Jimmy Fallon's like, you could be president. Like this is like a big deal. And before this happens, like, do you think I could do something? And he's like, what is it, Jimmy? He's like, can I mess with your hair? And so Jimmy Fallon like messed with his hair and people were so mad at Jimmy Fallon. They were mad at Jimmy Fallon because I don't know, it made him seem too human. This is the man who said that all Mexicans are rapists, which isn't true. This is the man who said, all this kind of stuff that they claim that he said and it did, and most of the time it's not the case or whatever. But they just want everyone to see him as a monster. So when people take the time to remind folks that he's really kind of funny, and times he can be very charming, he worked hard, taught a lot of good values to his kids. He wasn't the best husband, most faithful guy in that kind of regards. I still think it's fascinating how much respect that his children, all have for him. Their dynamic is fascinating. But they just want him to be the boogeyman. And the boogeyman isn't the one wearing orange. The boogeyman are the Obamas and Schumer and Pelosi and Kamala and Biden. They're the ones who you need to be keeping the light on for, concerned that they're going to come out from under the bed and steal the lives of your children with their mobile abortion truck. So they're the ones to be concerned about, for sure. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost to stream and run it and all that. So if you guys can support, I very much do appreciate it. I encourage you all to check out the revised edition, the second edition of course, God is blatantly against abortion, that covers rights and science and theology and so on with this topic. So it's really good. It's not available in Barnes & Nobles right now. That's my old picture for it, but it's on Amazon. So you guys can go check it out. Second edition. And it's got some new content and stuff in there. So go ahead and buy it on paperback, or you guys can get an ebook and go check out that new article that I wrote about the violinist argument. It's got a lot of good rebuttals in there. And I think it's different than any other rebuttal I've heard too. And it's very thorough. I like to be thorough with my articles because I don't want to have to revisit a lot of different debates in the comments. So I try to make them thorough. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.